Welcome to Spectrum Sundays. I am Megan Sinisi, Miss Pennsylvania 2021, and the founder of a nonprofit organization for autism titled From a New Perspective. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University of Missouri.
And I am Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands of New York, serving my community through AAA appreciation and awareness for autism. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University at Buffalo.
Everyone deserves to feel accepted and included in every space they walk in. Our series aims to inspire you to advocate for yourself and on behalf of your loved ones, and we are so grateful that you're here with us today.
Alexis Wineman is an autism self-advocate who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 11. She now works as a daycare and preschool professional. Alexis enjoys public speaking and held the prestigious title of Miss Montana 2012, where she expanded upon her advocacy work for the autism community. She also was voted as America's Choice in 2013 when she graced the Miss America stage in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we were so excited to have you on today, Alexis, and it looks like you have a guest with us too.
Yes, she was starting to quack, so I had to grab her.
What's her name?
Little Maddie Cat,
Aww.
Madeline Catherine Cat. So we call her Maddie Cat.
Well, we love to have on more guests, and we're happy to have on Maddie today as well. And before we start our conversation, we always like to speak with our self-advocates and address the differences in language preference. So there's person first language, which is saying person with autism, and there's a diagnosis first language, which is saying autistic person. So do you feel like you identify with one over the other as we address our conversation throughout today?
Yeah, this is a question I get posed a lot. I personally, I'll tell you right now, I don't really care. Like as long as it's kind of it's being acknowledged and it's people are not trying to be disrespectful. I don't really care. I've had people say and discuss like autistic, but also like, oh, this post, like very condescending also the other way. So I've heard it bad both ways and I've heard it fine both ways. I just figure I think right now especially there's other things to be more upset about. So I really don't personally care, but I know a lot of people, that's a point of contention. So it is very nice that you guys do ask.
Absolutely. We always like to approach it with the perspective that everyone has their own preferences. And if we can start off a conversation by asking that, then we can show respect throughout the conversation to do so. But you're right. There are so many things to worry about in our world that sometimes there's little details. It seems like, oh, why do we worry so much? But I think over time, language, it's so interesting. It changes every day, every year. Something different is out there.
I understand why people get upset about it. I'm not trying to say, oh, it doesn't matter. Because, there's people feel differently about very different things and their emotions shouldn't be just sideswiped because it doesn't seem like a big deal. We don't know other people's stories or anything like that. So it's very important that that question is asked. But, as personally, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Montana. And I didn't even know I had autism until I was 11. So it to me, it personally doesn't matter to me. But it is amazing that you guys even take the time to ask, because so many people just don't.
Absolutely. Well, we acknowledge that everyone's feelings are valid. So on this series, we like to share why some people feel one way or the other. And your perspective is that, it's fine either way. So that just lets other people know that for a lot of people, it is that way. But you did mention that your diagnosis didn't come until you were about 11 years old. And we've learned throughout our advocacy that that's often the case for girls and young women. So if you're comfortable sharing, could you talk us through the process of what it was like receiving an autism diagnosis and what that looked like for you specifically?
It's a long story. The story takes 11 years. But it was a very strange case because, in Montana, we didn't have any resources. We didn't really know what autism looked like at the time, like everyone. And, I have a twin sister. So when, the symptoms started showing up, they showed up real fast and they were very noticeable because not only did I have a direct person to compare to, but you know, she was also excelling to the point where she was actually overachieving past our age group, and I was not even getting to the average of our age group. And, you know, we went through so many different, like, you know, we reached out to just people in the community because at that point we thought that's all we had. So that, like, people said, oh, she's just in a phase, like the, you know, the typical things we all hear, just in a phase, or, you know, she's upset because her sister is doing so well, or she's just lazy. And then, like, of course, like, even my mom got accused of bad parenting from time to time, despite the fact that she had 3 other kids who were doing just fine. So it was very just an odd experience for my parents, and even for me, because, you know, I wasn't unaware of what was going on. I knew something was off. And so my mom started taking me to this doctor, and he misdiagnosed me as depressed. And so at this point, I think I was 9 or 10, and he put me on so many antidepressants to the point where my mom was actually thankful that I got the flu, like, later that year, because then we just went to a family doctor, and our family doctor was like a family friend. He'd watched us grow up, and he's just this happy, like, Southern gentleman from Arkansas, and he was just like this sweet guy, and I'd never seen this man mad. And oh my gosh, when my mom told him, like, okay, she's on this medication and this is the dosage, he nearly flipped a table. He was so mad. Apparently I was on this dosage you would give an adult male, and I was a prepubescent girl. And so we started tapering me off of that, and then it really became like, okay, if it isn't the depression, then what is it? And so I started going to doctors all around the state, because at the time we only had 1 pediatric neurologist in the state, entire state of Montana, and he's no longer even there. So if anyone listening is planning on opening a pediatric neurology practice, go to Montana. You'll have a monopoly, and it's going to be great for you. But and that took 9 months to get an appointment with him. So my mom was taking me to every doctor she could think of. And meanwhile, the antidepressants actually made me black out an entire year of my life. So I actually don't remember my 6th grade year at all. People have told me stories. I remember my best friend coming in, like best friend's dad coming into class once and just embarrassing her and then leaving. Like that for some reason that came up. I think that's when they were starting to like taper me off of them, but for some reason that's like one of my only memories of my 6th grade year. And so finally we went in, and he told me I had autism, and I didn't know what that meant. My parents were like so excited. They were like, oh my gosh, we finally have an answer, we can finally move forward, we can figure stuff out and get her like go. And I was just like, I don't know what this is, and quite frankly I don't really care. At that point, I was just so fed up. I was like, I am 11 years old. I am practically an adult. I just figured all the first impressions I was ever going to make were made. And I was angry. I was like, just done. And it wasn't until like my parents started like pushing me to be more involved and getting out of my comfort zone that I started feeling more and more comfortable with my diagnosis. It wasn't until my senior year of high school where I finally accepted it. But it took a long time for me to even understand what it was. Like, I was so fed up at that point. Is like, I knew I had autism, but for some reason, immediately I forgot about it because it wasn't important to me. So, you know, those autism ads would come on TV, and I'd be like, what's that, Mom? And she's just like, we went through so much and you don't even know what it was. She just like, she was gripping the table, just like, but it looked like that. And it's, from what I understand, a lot of girls who are diagnosed around middle school age feel that. And it is quite upsetting because, you know, there is this male bias in the autism community. And I don't know if what I went through was necessarily that, but, you know, the doctor who diagnosed me as depressed, the reason I say he was first off, a bad doctor is because first he put a kid on Zoloft who, and you don't do that. But he also he never looked at me the entire time he was diagnosing me. He never looked me in the eye. He never looked over me, like witnessed my neuroses or anything like that. He literally just sat there looking at a paper, asking me questions. And I remember very clearly, thinking, well, fine, if he's not gonna look at me, I'm not gonna look at him. And so I just looked at the clock. I was in there for at least 7 minutes and 58 seconds. And next thing you know, a year of my life is gone. I don't remember it. And it was, I hope to God that part of the story is not common. It's just, I can't personally say that was because of bias. I think that was more because of an inept doctor thinking he knows better. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's just like, oh, it's just this girl. I would have probably been institutionalized for hysteria in the 1500s. So who knows? But it's very hard to say what was the reason why it took so long. But looking at the data now, it wouldn't surprise me.
I think part of that, why it takes so long, is because of the lack of research and awareness at that time too. But I also want to just say thank you so much for being vulnerable and honest and open and raw about that process for you, because it's painful. And I can even hear it in your voice how difficult it was for you to go through, because that's not something you just get over. And ultimately, like you said, you've kind of felt like it was always who you were. So at one point you just didn't care because of everything. But I do know that a lot of our viewers have gone through difficult processes themselves, and it's all looked a little bit different. So I'm hoping that whoever's listening today can feel like they relate and feel like they're not alone, and feel like there is some kind of light at the end of the tunnel for them, whether that be an answer or services, or maybe just some kind of hope. So really, thank you so much for taking that time to explain it to us, and because I know it can't be easy at all.
It's not necessarily it's not easy. I'm 27 now, and it's not that it's necessarily hard. What's hard is hearing the accounts of what my family was going through that time. Because for me, I experienced it. It was very difficult, but at the same time, it was difficult because I just didn't understand what normal was. So I was trying to be that and failing miserably because no one knows how to describe how their brain works. Mm-hmm. So it was very hard to just because I remember very clearly going to a convention with my mom, when I was Miss Montana, and we were going someone was on the stage explaining something about sensory issues. And that was something that had never occurred to my mom because we had no resources. My mom wrote my IEPs. My school district had no idea what to do. So she just kind of stopped and turned to me while this woman is talking, and I'm stopping as well because I was like, that's not everybody. I thought everyone experienced this stuff. And so she was talking, one thing she brought up was grocery stores, and my mom just gripped the table and she's just like, oh my God, because I hated going to the grocery store. She tried to bribe me with I'll give you a candy bar and everything like that, because she just wanted me out of the house and to get me out. And I was I was a kid, I was screaming, I was yelling in the grocery store, and everyone was giving her side looks and everything, and thought I was just throwing a tantrum. And my mom's just like, is that what it's like? And I was like, is that what it's not like? So we had this moment of just wow, because it was just strange because we were more focused on getting me through school at that point, helping me out through my academics and stuff like that. So she didn't realize I never am able to ignore the feeling of the shirt on my back or anything like that. I'm always aware of it and I can't ignore anything I touch. or hear, or like, and why loud like noises freaked me out or anything like that. So autism is definitely something you continue to learn about as you live through it, just because you don't know how the other half lives. You don't know, because they can't explain it. And so it's very strange when someone comes up to me, it's like, well, you know, my kid has autism, can you explain? I was like, no, I really can't. I can tell you how it is for me and all the stuff I found out up till now. But again, my experience may be completely different. And it's so hard to get that through some people's heads. It's just like, these will work for me. It may work for you, but that's not a guarantee.
Well, I think this is actually a really good segue into our next question that we had. What are some of the autism traits that you find have helped provide positive assets to your life or maybe who you are?
Well, I can tell you a trait right now that has helped me immensely, especially in my current profession as a preschool professional, is I keep forgetting what the technical term of it is called, but I perceive all sound at the exact same volume. So sounds tend to be the thing that if I'm going into a meltdown, it's probably over something I heard. And but you know, like I'll be working in the office because I tend to have an office job now, but I was trained in the classrooms. I know every kid in the daycare, every teacher, and I will be hearing conversations the teachers are having with kids. I know kind of what they're learning and everything like that without ever leaving my desk. And which has been great because, you know, with coronavirus and everything like that, everyone's been so short-staffed. So there's not a lot of opportunities I get nowadays of just to get up from my desk and go to check the classrooms and stuff like that. But so I love creative writing. That is one of my biggest passions in life. I hope to one day like have, you know, books out. That would be my greatest like bucket list of just having a book published. That'd be so cool. But recently I've just been dabbling with one word set, like, you know, the one sentence stories. Like that was everyone who took a creative writing class knows all about one sentence stories. And then like I was just writing a whole bunch of those out, just kind of like just at work, just like on my like notepad. And I saw one that I really liked. I was like, oh, okay, like, this could be something else later. And so instead of like just trying, like looking at the blank page, I just typed up that sentence, and then I just broke it down to who, what, where. And now I have like 10 pages of like not like single spaced of just characters in this story. And I'm just so excited about that. Probably to the point that actually hurt me at work that day because I was just like, in a minute. It's like I forgot I was doing a job for a second.
That's so cool. Well, we'll be looking forward to your publication.
Won't be anytime soon, but I appreciate it. But another thing, I've been getting into reading more. I've been reading a lot of fiction books because that's, you know, the type of stories I like to write, just like make believe. I love like sci-fi, fantasy stuff. My current obsession right now is actually Dungeons and Dragons. So I've been playing a lot of D&D with some friends of mine down here, and if you guys haven't tried it, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
it's like group therapy too. It's just like you get to be someone else for a little bit. Like the stresses of Alexis just go away because I get to be, you know, Theseus the bard. Like,
you know, that's some advice that I was given recently going into Miss America is channel whoever your alias is, that when you're having a rough day or you just need to channel some energy in a different way, have an alias and just pretend like you're Beyonce for a day, you know? So I totally understand that. And I think that's so cool that you discovered that without really trying to, and then it ended up being something that you enjoy doing, but then you get a benefit out of it as well.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you have community in that area.
Yes, it's one thing that forces you to socialize it, but like I don't get nervous about it because I feel like I'm making up like I'm with these like fake people, but real people are controlling the fake people. So it's still socializing, and then it's just a great time. And it's just also like a bunch of nerds getting together. So like there's no pressure. It's just like I don't have to be like, you know, because sometimes, especially you ladies know, like once you're wearing the crown, just gotta be professional all the time. Everything's great. Like I can slouch when I'm playing D&D. I don't have to worry about my posture.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love learning more about what makes you tick and your interests and how they help you in your everyday life and also in your profession. I think that's really interesting to hear, that hearing different things at all the same volume has been an asset to your life and has maybe helped you cut a little corners and save some time along the way. So that's really cool that those kinds of things about your experience with autism have been a benefit to you. On the flip side, we were also curious about any characteristics that might make life a little more challenging, or we know specifically that the world isn't necessarily designed for people with disabilities in general, but especially autism, because every single person experiences the world differently. So, what are some of those things that might be challenging to you? And then, what advice might you give so that we can bridge the gap and make the world more accessible and less difficult in those areas?
That just the acknowledgement of like that this society is not one size fits all. Like I think everyone goes through like you fit into society or you're wrong. And like that is such a poisonous mindset to have. And the fact that, you know, things are getting a little better. Like I'm like partnered with Zappos Adaptive, which is just getting sensory friendly clothes. So people don't have to just sit and fidget with their tag all day, or, you know, don't worry about their seams, or if there's that one kid who only likes one shirt and the parents can't get them to change that shirt. They have like inside out like clothes that actually look good. And it's like, the fact that like just even clothes are getting more adaptive, and you know a lot of office buildings now are like building safe rooms on floors, like so like if someone feels like they're about to have a meltdown they can go in there. And it's 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 a step in the right direction, but at the same time it's not enough. It's considering how big the autism community is, it's just got to be the point of just like we need to teach it in schools and everything like that. That's like different doesn't necessarily mean wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean weird or like side glance or anything like that. It deserves attention, but at the same time, so does the person who has the autism. Like just they're not just autism with a pair of legs running around. It's a person who's struggling, but at the same time, they also have especially they may be a great D&D player, or like they may like want to try sports or something like that. And it's almost to the point where it's just like when I did Miss Montana, I was very underprepared because I didn't expect to win that year. So I was kind of going in, kind of testing the waters, because first off, I grew up hating pageants, to be perfectly honest. I did not like pageants. I thought they were like dumb, a waste of time. But I also had this in my head of just like, well, that's for normal girls. And I'm not that, so I can't be that. So I grew up this whole mentality of like, that's not for me. So I shouldn't even waste my time thinking about it. And just the fact that I grew up thinking that, granted, of course, shenanigans happened and I ended up being one of the things I thought I couldn't be. But just I grew up like that shows that, you know, society has shown like put up these pedestals of these people who are considered the pinnacles of normal, the pinnacles of society's best. And not once has it ever been someone with autism or anything like that, even before I showed up, or, you know, Susan Boyle showed up. And then like the people who, you know, who have been icons for years, like Dan Aykroyd or anything like that, they didn't come out till later about that they've had this all along. It's always been like something we don't mention. And it's like, it's strange. And though that's changing, it's still not changing enough. It's very difficult to talk about even now, because I can see that an effort is being made and I don't want to stifle that and being like, it's not enough, how dare you, like, go further or something like that. But we shouldn't have to constantly be like, I'm here, I'm a person, but I still need this addressed. I don't want to be embarrassed about it. So I go at work and I'm open about it. I talk about it, everything like that. And it's strange to see like just people at work or anything like that just be like surprised or anything like that. They shouldn't be. It's like, considering the statistics, they really shouldn't be. But it's I just wish like we were more involved in schools with neurodiversity being a thing, instead of just like, oh, this girl, she needs to go to the special ed room or something like that. It's just like, that's not challenging her enough. That's not putting her out of her comfort zone or anything like that. Like, people with autism need to be challenged. And it breaks my heart when I go to these conventions and I see these grown adults who, you know, they're verbal, they're functional, everything like that, yet their parents are still talking for them. That breaks my heart. And I've even had a parent, like their son really wanted to talk to me, but she kept on shushing him because she was talking to me for him. And eventually I just told the woman to step aside, and so I could talk to her son. And yes, did he get off topic a lot? Yeah. Did he like everything like that? But he has that skill to do that. He can talk to me. Like, it's almost like parents with children with autism, they're like, granted, this is obviously not all of them, but I've seen a very big uptick in parents are just like, it's the bless their heart raising of the kids, and it's not good. It's like, okay, I have a child with autism. What do I need to do to make sure that they're still having their needs met, but I can still work with them, I can still push them to get out of their comfort zone, like move forward and be independent, that they don't have like, and still teach them, you know, manners, like boundaries and things like that. And that's one thing with preschool I work at, I've definitely taught all the kids, not even, because all the kids need to learn about this, is just like, never touch someone without their consent. Because, you know, you have these adorable, beautiful, adorable kids, and all you want to do is just like, come here, give me hugs, oh my gosh. And of course, they're so adapted that they'll just run at someone and like try to hug them. And and I can't be touched by people unless I know it's coming. So if a kid's running at me from behind, last thing I want to do is like freak out and yell, because that's going to scare the kid. So what I've done is just like, I will not hug you unless you ask for a hug. If you come up and ask for a hug, you can have as many hugs as you want. I'm so happy to give you a hug because I'm a hugger, but I have to be the one initiating it. And I explained to them, I sat down, I was like, you know, some people out there, they don't like to be touched. And that doesn't mean they don't love you. That doesn't mean they won't want to support you. But sometimes you just got to remember that that's their space. And if they don't know you're in their space, that can really freak someone out. And some kids took to it very well and other kids did not. But it's the fact that that lesson is there. That needs to be taught everywhere. People need their boundaries respected, and they need, like, but at the same time, it's like they should be open, like, hey, I don't like being touched. Everyone just needs to be aware of the boundaries, not even if they have autism. It's like, that's just something that needs to be addressed, because I know many neurotypical people who don't like being touched. It's the same, it's what the thing is. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is it's like teaching the lesson that people on the spectrum need to be taught for their sake is also beneficial for people who are neurotypical. And so I don't get why it's taking so long to like make this more mainstream of just having society be adaptable rather than forcing someone to adapt to it.
Well, I think that something key you said was respect. And so I'm currently working as a speech language pathologist full time in the schools, like we had mentioned right before this episode. And before every lesson, we do two things. We talk about our feelings, and then we also go over the rules, which in one of them is respecting people's boundaries, and we keep our hands to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I really start out every session like that, so it's clear. And some of the kids know, you know, others are okay to have hugs and stuff, but for the most part, we always know to keep our hands to our bodies because it's about respecting other people's bodies and our own. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. It kind of affirms everything that I've been doing in my own sessions, but also
it's also very difficult too, because the kids are the greatest scientists on the place of the planet. They're learning everything. They got to see how things feel, got to see what these things sound like. They got to see what this sounds like if you throw it against a wall. It's just like they're trying to figure the world out, and I do not want to discourage that. That's why I always say, like, ask. You have to ask before you do something like that, because you may see like someone wearing a cool shirt they've never seen before. Like, I want to know what that shirt feels like. Ask them before you do it. And it's like, I don't want to discourage like, affection or anything like that. It's just more of a sake of just like, first off, also time and place. Like, this may not be hug time. Like, so many kids, if I'm helping them, like, we have a hall bathroom, if I'm helping them like in and out of the bathroom, all of a sudden I have 10 kids coming up like, hugs, 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 which is great that they're asking. I was like, is this the time to do that? No, we're clogging the entrance. We gotta go. Like, go to the bathroom. Like, it's very much a case of just like, whatever people are like, oh yeah, we really need to help people with autism learn this. I was like, you need to help everyone learn that. It's not just an autism situation.
Exactly. And like you said, there's so much that has been changing over the years with more awareness, whether that be research or just autistic people speaking their own perspective and their own opinions. And we wanted to know a little bit from your own perspective, what you think the most important change has been over the years.
That is a tricky question because, like I said, when I won Miss Montana, that was not expected. In fact, that was not even planned on. Like, when I first off, I was only like 2 weeks out of graduation when I won. So I was very young. I was the youngest person in that class when I had won. It was intimidating very much because since I had autism, my mom, we were struggling trying to figure out what my platform would be. And I was very passionate about child hunger. I had started like a kid pack program at my school. I was very appalled when I found out people in my community were going home hungry. I was like, oh, that one. And my mom's just like, well, what about autism? This could be a good learning experience for us. And so, since this is your first time around, you're probably not going to win. She wasn't trying to discourage me. She really was excited she was very much a pageant person. She was like, I'm so excited. Like, I was more doing it for like a scholarship. She was very excited. I could dress up my daughter because I was never into dresses or anything like that. She's like, you can't escape me this time. I'm gonna put makeup on you and you're gonna learn how to walk in heels. And I was like, oh God. It's like, I just want to go to school. But when she's like, well, this could be a good learning experience for us. And, platforms are very much should be a case of just like the miss learns along the way as well. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. It could be cool, like everything like that. Then I won and I was like, oh no, I don't know anything. And I was very concerned about it, but my mom was like looking stuff up, and we ended up buying into the fact that all advocacy is good advocacy, and that is not true. And if I could go back, I would change so many things about my reign as Miss Montana. Not necessarily my platform or anything like that, because the platform itself, I still stand by. Acceptance and awareness is something that even now, considering like the statistics, is very strange that not many people know it. So I went through the whole thing, and I went to so many like conventions and stuff. I just, looking back, I was like, I can't believe I did that. That did more harm than good. I shouldn't have done that. And like, I went to Autism 1, and I don't even agree with anything they say. And Generation Rescue, all these, like, I wore the Autism Speaks pin everywhere, and I'm just like, looking back, I was just like, I should have done my research. I should have waited a year. I should have been more. And now everyone like associates me with those groups, and I'm like, I really don't agree with any of them, and I feel so bad. And that's, and I have a hard time like condemning them, because people are like, well, you were there. And I was like, I know, and it was a dumb reason why I was there. It's because I was stupid. And I'm sure part of it was like I was starstruck, because like people really like agree with me. Oh my God. Like I was getting all this validation that I've never received before in my life outside my family. And I think I got swept up in it. And it was this moment of just like, it wasn't until recently I really sat down and took stock of what I believed in. Cause I went off on social media about like vaccines don't cause autism, like stop saying it. It's not true. And even if it was, stop treating autism like it's worse than a deadly disease. It really, it kind of opened my eyes, and I was mortified that I had supported this in the past, but more for the sake of I supported it because I just was like, well, all advocacy is good advocacy. And I just wish I could just like reach out to like the community that was always hesitant about supporting me because I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't do my homework. I apologize. But I won't apologize for my platform. Like for all the things I was very stupid and naive about when I was a kid, there's so many things I stand by in my reign. I just, it's, the things that you look back and you cringe at always are like front and center in your mind. And so I definitely would have approached my Miss America campaign with a lot more research of just like what the community was as a whole. And some of the organizations I supported at the time have really shifted. At that time, Autism Speaks, like it was slightly controversial at the time, but it did not have this massive like about it now. And so because like my mom, she ended up getting the resources she could from Autism Speaks because we just had nothing near us. The nearest Starbucks was an hour and a half away. Right. So getting support with a child that had needs not being met, when meanwhile she had 3 other children, one all the way already off to college, and she has to pay for that as well. Like it was hard. So I don't blame parents reaching out, scrambling for any support. So when a parent reaches out to Autism Speaks or another organization that is very sketchy, I don't blame them for that. They're looking anywhere for any sort of support. The inner workings of the organizations, that's another story. But when people say like, yeah, I got this from so-and-so, and the fact that some people just tear down like these parents who are just looking for any sort of relief for their kid, because their kid's going through a very confusing time. Mm-hmm. It's very hard. And that to me is not really acceptance. That's more of just like, oh, you supported this group? Well, maybe this group might help a little bit more on like that's leading them down the right direction, but confronting with aggression, it's never going to work. It's never going to work. So I agree with a lot of the advocates out there that these organizations need to reevaluate and or shut down, but hopefully reevaluate, because I would hate all that support and resources going to waste. But like it's just not, it's not going to help anyone by just being so angry. Be angry at the corporations, do not be angry at the people looking for help.
Right, exactly. And I think it's really important for us to normalize changing your mind about things whenever you're presented with new information. So 10 years ago, there was one premier autism organization. So everyone, when they thought of autism, they thought of XYZ organization. And that has continued to be so because that was the original organization that has gone on. And I think too that you mentioned Autism Speaks. I think that they have also taken steps in ways and others to bring more actually autistic people on their board and bring more people in, have more research. And so I think it's very important for us to encourage, if there is an organization that helps your family, that is okay, because it's helping you for your immediate needs right now.
And that's certainly helpful. I hope that's true. I hope, like, that's the whole thing, is it's like, I don't necessarily want these organizations to shut down or be like boycotted on Twitter or anything like that. But I would just want them to get their act together is basically what I want. And
Yeah,
I
and I
definitely
think if
think,
anything, people
yeah,
should be held accountable if there are things that are not right, or if they can be improved. There's always a way to improve things. And, the way that Francesca and I have discussed on Spectrum Sundays before is the more that we have actually autistic people making decisions for themselves, they're the
yes.
experts. So as long as we're encouraging that within organizations, I think that over time, these organizations, they all want to help. They all have the common goal in the right place, that they want to bring resources to families and they want to make life easier for those that have autism or experience it on a daily basis. So it's just working together as a community rather than working against each other for that common goal.
And that's the unfortunate thing. It's like that seems to be what's happening now. It's like obviously there's still a lot of things that need to be fixed in certain organizations and stuff like that. But the fact that we're just kind of like going at it and just like butting heads and not actually getting stuff done, it seems like almost like the advocacy is just like, oh, what side are you on? Like, oh my God, like, and obviously you need to be aware of who you're supporting and everything like that, which I was not during my Miss Montana. I was just like, yay, people are acknowledging me and for good reasons this time. It's just like, they know how to entice people, but it's also to the sake of just, you get so caught up in like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. It's like, you're not promoting the things you hold as right. It's like, there's this good organization in Australia called Yellow Ladybugs, and it's it's mostly for people, women on the spectrum. It helps like fill the bias and like and I was just like, oh my gosh, if we weren't butting heads so much, we could find out how we can open a chapter here in the States or in the UK or like all around the world. But no, we're just too like, oh, isn't this great? Why aren't you that? It's just like, help them out then, like help bring like resources here, like wherever you're at. We need something like that here, especially for women. I know there's a organization for women and non-binaries, but unfortunately I don't have the name right now, which again, I'm hearing good things, but they're a small organization. And I was like, well, not like, instead of like going crazy about your hate for A, B, and C, pour your money into company D that you love and like that is showing like only good results. And it's like you're going up against the big boys, but like you don't realize like this little organization you have over here can be so much bigger and give that support that you want these companies to do. And it's discouraging to see that we're so focused on bringing down the man, that we're not just like, let's build up what is like the real support and what is like what you're saying is like the real deal. And like I think it feels like that's where we're stuck right now. It's like people are just so focused on bringing down these organizations, but they're not helping the organizations that need it.
Yeah. And I think that I was thinking of an analogy there with supporting small businesses. It's kind of like the same thing, like you could either go to the chain restaurant or you can go to the mom and pop shop down the street. So I agree that we definitely need to get more information out about those small networks within the autism community so that more people know about it, because like you said earlier, it's not one size fits all. So not one organization may be one size fits all for everybody, depending on what people need. And then I think too, within this discussion of having an understanding of what you would change over time if you could go back, a lot of advocacy focuses on the stereotypes and breaking down the misconceptions about autism, which I can pretty certainly say that you have been a face for challenging those stereotypes over time, because like you said, you didn't see yourself as Miss Montana, and you as a girl didn't see autistic people being Miss Montana or Miss America, but you were and you are, and that's your legacy. So that's one barrier stereotype that you broke. But over time, what have you kind of seen as the major stereotype about people with autism or a misconception that you wish people understood better about autism?
I think what obviously like everyone thinks of like things like Rain Man or stuff like that. Sheldon Cooper, everyone, like that's a new one. And I'm just like, I actually didn't know what that was. And I looked up Big Bang Theory. I was like, oh, okay. It was just kind of weirded me out. But like, it's strange that everyone thinks like, oh, it's a person with autism is these weird savants that don't have empathy. And that seems to be the thing. And it's couldn't be further from the truth. The thing, like, and what gets me is that my mom always thought I was going to grow up to be one of them savants. And I kind of understood why. I grew up, my special obsession growing up was outer space. I was going to be an astronaut. I was going to be the first woman on Mars. We haven't had a woman on the moon yet, but for some reason I was skipping. And that was my big goal. Like I trained myself to like astronaut food. Because like, what if we run out of water? I got to know like how to enjoy it when it's all dehydrated and gross. I trained myself to like that. Like my grandparents got me a NASA jacket, a NASA hat, because I got to train for the job. Like I got to dress for the job I want. And I was so into it. And it got to the point where my mom told me, I don't remember this, but my mom told me that I had an astronomy like college book, like a college astronomy book. And I was finding mistakes in it. And she was just like, oh my God, my kid's gonna be an astronaut. She was freaking out. She was so excited about it. And all it took was one person to tear that down for me. Like I lost all interest in space. And that's what really gets me is like, it's so easy to like not necessarily destroy, but maybe momentarily destroy a kid with autism self-esteem. Make them feel like they are nothing but, disabled or anything like that. And it's terrifying. And that alone, first off, disproved the other one, that we are people without empathy. And what I've learned is that there's different kinds of empathy. There's, compassionate empathy, which is our like we want to help people out. We like, oh my gosh, like if we see a friend down on the luck, we're gonna help them out. Or if we're good people. I've met some jerks on the spectrum, but that it shows like we're just like regular people. There can be jerks and there can be nice people. It depends on who they are. But like the ability to want to help someone down on luck, we don't lack that. We don't lack the ability to like relate to someone's feelings. Like we understand like, oh gosh, my friend's dog died. My friend's really sad. We can empathize with the friend. Like, yeah, that would be a sad thing. And oh my gosh, my heart breaks for them. What we have trouble with, we don't lack this, is something called cognitive empathy, which is the ability to read between the lines. We struggle with social cues. We struggle with reading the room. It's very, but we don't lack that. It's something we have to train at. It's like not, communication is something of, let's say like people have an instruction manual on how to use communication. They're born with it. They eventually understand it and they move on. We're human beings. We're communicative species. It just comes natural to us. A person with autism gets that instruction manual, but it's in a language they can't read. So they got to follow diagrams. They got to figure out how other people, they got to look at other people building this IKEA bookshelf of communication, which is some reason the analogy I'm working with right now. But we got to figure it out without actually understanding it. And
it's probably like when someone says, oh no, I'm fine, I promise. But there's actually.
And I think like, yeah, okay, good. Like, then I'll move on. I was like, I won't actually, you got to tell me how you're feeling. And so now I'm like, I told all of my friends, I was like, don't give me looks. I don't want to do effort when I'm with my friends. So you got to tell me first and foremost. And I clearly have a lot of sarcasm. I can dish it, but man, can I not take it. And so it's a problem. I'm getting better at it. I can do it, but it's not a skill that I was born doing. It was something I had to learn secondhand. And that needs to be addressed as well. It's just like, people just need to be first off more honest and open. Like they can't just be like, I'm fine when they're clearly not. They need to be open and like, because stuff's like not gonna get done if that like behind the scenes crap is happening. It's just like we might as well just like be mad at each other, fight, and get over it. It's just like more of a, we need to have more verbal communication. And nonverbal communication is a beautiful thing. It's wonderful when both parties understand what the heck is going on. The problem is like you can't always rely on that with someone with autism. It's not necessarily that they don't, and heck, they might be fantastic, like fluent in it.
Well, that's a sentiment that we've heard a lot from guests who are on the spectrum. They say that being literal is the best way for them to understand the world. So they take things literally, they interpret things literally. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to, is the reading between the lines. And that can be taken as a lack of empathy, because other people are like, what do you mean? You can tell something's wrong, even if I'm saying I'm fine. So
yeah, and like my mom loved telling this story, and I don't even remember it happening, but I believe it. Was that my dad came in because he traveled a lot growing up, so he came in, it was raining really bad, and he's like, oh my god, it's raining. Like she's like, oh god, how bad is it out there? It only was drizzling earlier. He's like, oh, it's raining cats and dogs, and I started screaming. Because then I was just like, of course I had so many speech impediments in my family because I'm running around now, I'm screaming, I'm running around, and I'm grabbing laundry baskets and I'm stuffing them with blankets and pillows. And finally my mom gets close enough because she's trying to grab, she's like, don't go inside, it's storming, where are you going? Like sort of a deal. And I'm just like, finally catches what I'm saying. I'm apparently trying to say, save them,
right.
save them. And I'm crying. And so she knows I'm not good, like goofing off, like, because I do jokes like that all the time when I was a kid, but like she knows this is not a joke. And so I'm like, she's grabbing me, meanwhile I'm like trying to run out the door, trying to save all these cats and dogs that are apparently falling from the sky. And she, at the time, she was just like very, like, she's like, it's okay, honey, but on her face she's like just like laughing, because she's like, oh no, this could be a problem later if this keeps continuing. And the whole thing is like, as I also believe that people with autism need to laugh at themselves more. Because first off, you can be a way happier person if like, it's amazing how little things can hurt you when you laugh at yourself. That was the whole thing when I experienced, like many people on spectrum experienced bullying and stuff like that. The moment I started laughing at myself, I realized like all the power went away from them and it was now mine. I was the comedian, the crowd was mine. I stole their show and the thunder. And it was great. I loved making people laugh, and I loved making, like, anytime I laughed at myself, I was always in on the joke. I was fine with it. And that's one thing I noticed, like, not many people are willing to laugh at themselves. And that's a shame, because I'm hilarious. I am chock full of material, and I never pass up an opportunity to like make someone laugh, even if it's at like the expense of making myself the butt of the joke, because to me that's not an expense.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to have a sense of humor, and you can never take life too seriously. So as we're kind of wrapping up this episode today, we really hit some really good nuggets of information and have loved hearing about your story and your journey, and especially how you have made light of everything as to not let anything get you down along the way.
First off, to interrupt you, I apologize. The whole sentiment of nothing gets me down, I never agree with that. There's so many things that get me down, even today. Like, I still have my meltdowns. I still have sensory issues. Even at work one day, I was just like, boss, I'm going to go in my car. I'm going to scream for a little bit. You're just going to have to be fine with that. They were. It's not this case of like, nothing gets me down. It's like, nothing keeps me down. And that's the thing, is it's like everyone's just like, nothing get me down, like I can't show any weakness. Like, I think that's like not necessarily a good phrase, and I know you didn't mean that in that particular way, so I'm not like getting down your throat or anything like that, but it's okay to feel like weak sometimes. It's okay to have these moments, because God knows if you hold it in, it's only gonna get worse. But just don't let it keep you down. Don't.
I love that. I'm going to adopt that and say that to myself every single day as my mom.
You can't adopt it.
I was just
am
thinking
in
that
full
too.
custody. I will go to court and we'll do this the right way, Megan.
I'll always tag you in it though. I'll copy you. You have it copyrighted. I'll always credit.
Tag me in the social media. I have a hard time keeping up with.
Well, I think that is a great message to send to our viewers too. I know I needed that in my life right now. But as we're wrapping up this conversation, is there anything else that you'd really just like our viewers to take away? If they could remember anything for the rest of their lives from this conversation, what would you try to convey?
I guess just always take stock of what is truly important, at least in your journey with autism, and always try to go forth with that in mind. It's very strange that a lot of people will always be like, I need to do this because that's what the community needs. And that's great. And it's always great to be an advocate that tries to reach as many people as possible. But at the same time, it's just like, you got to focus on you sometimes as well. It's a case of just like, who you are on the spectrum does not need to be sacrificed for everyone else on the spectrum. And if you need to take time just for yourself, no one should be able to like fault you for that. If you need to step away from advocacy or step away from social media for a while to sort yourself out, or like if you're having a bad sensory day or overload coming, there's no shame in taking time for that. And that's something I never really thought about, especially during my time as Miss Montana, was I never thought like I'm a voice for a community now. Like I gotta put my needs aside for the message. And what I didn't realize at the time was like, I'm not the voice of the community, I'm a voice in a community, and that voice needs to rest every once in a while. So just, especially now when mental health ain't doing too well right now for anybody, please take that time. Please just never be ashamed for being selfish every once in a while.
Absolutely. We definitely need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and being very aware of what we're ingesting in our minds, in our bodies, in our hearts. So I think that that's an amazing message to leave with our viewers, because we are in a community that is based in advocacy. And I think a lot of times we fear taking a step back because of what we could be doing in that meantime, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. So you have to take that time to care for yourself as much as you care for other people too. So thank you so much, Alexis, for being with us today on Spectrum Sundays. We really appreciated this conversation and loved getting to know you. And if you all enjoyed watching this episode as well, please make sure to follow Alexis. She is on Facebook and Twitter at Alexis Wineman, and on Instagram at alexis.wineman. And you can also visit her website at alexiswineman.com. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday. Thank you for listening to Spectrum Sundays. We are your hosts, Miss Pennsylvania Megan Sinisi.
And Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands. Please make sure to subscribe to our series and follow us on social media to stay connected to autism professionals and self-advocates.
And remember, true impact is accomplished through active listening and exploring the world through a variety of perspectives.
Join us next week on Spectrum Sundays to help cultivate a community of inclusion, appreciation, and acceptance around autism.